Welcome to our next session of Finding New Life in Jesus While Quarantined. Today we are in the Sermon on the Mount, and we're going to spend a couple of sessions digging into the teachings that Jesus has on Sermon on the Mount. Because to be honest with you, these teachings really bother me because I don't see how in the world Jesus expects us to do them. You know, how am I supposed to turn the other cheek? How am I supposed to love my enemy? How am I supposed to reconcile with those who have enmity against them when I'm going to church and remember that, leave my gift at the altar and then go be reconciled? Those are very hard things to do that Jesus is asking of us. And how do I do that? Well, honestly, the teachings from the Sermon on the Mount, the teachings about reconciliation, about loving our neighbor, turning the other cheek, going the second mile, all of these teachings really do not make sense until you hear the end of the story. You know, the end of the story is found in Colossians, the first chapter. It says this, that God was in Christ, reconciling all things to himself, in heaven and on earth, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Okay, now here's the way to understand it. On the cross, Jesus bridged the chasm, the gap between us and God. You know, our disobedience, our sin had separated us from God. And Jesus came to reconcile us to God. And he has given us the ministry of reconciliation. All the sin of the world, everyone is reconciled to God through Jesus. That's why he shed his blood on the cross, to bridge the gap between us and God, and to bridge the gap between us and other people. Because if we can be reconciled to God, we can be reconciled to anyone. Like I said before, that God has given us the ministry of reconciliation. That's our job as Christians, is to reconcile. Yesterday we saw where Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount in the Beatitudes, blessed are the peacemakers. And that's what we're to be, is peacemakers. And it's through the cross that we can find reconciliation with our friends, our neighbors, our enemies. You know, life is difficult, and people hurt us, and we hurt people. You know, we do things we shouldn't do. They do things they shouldn't do. They say and do things that affect us. And it's so easy for us to feel offended, to want revenge, to be hurt, to be angry. And I'm sure that all those emotions, all those feelings, God knew about. That's why Jesus came, to reconcile us to him. We have peace with God, so that now we can have peace with everyone. That's what the Sermon on the Mount is all about. It's about Jesus saying, I'm going to the cross. I'm going to reconcile you to God. And then you can be reconciled to everyone else. Now the Sermon on the Mount makes sense. I can turn the other cheek. I can love my enemy. I can reconcile with those who have enmity against me. I can go the second mile. I cannot have anger against other people. Because if I don't do those things, if I harbor anger and enmity, if I don't reconcile, then I am denying the cross. I'm denying what Jesus did on the cross. I'm denying the power of the cross in my life. And in fact, Jesus said that if you don't forgive others, you won't be forgiven. Because if he would go to that extent to pay the full price with his blood to reconcile us to God, why can't we be reconciled to each other? You see, that's what he expects us to do. See, the cross isn't just for our relationship with God. It's for our relationship with each other. So the next time you find yourself struggling with a relationship, and with enmity, with anger, with hurt, whatever, take it to the cross. Give it to Jesus. Filter it through the cross. And let God help you reconcile just as Jesus reconciled with us. Read those verses in the Sermon on the Mount about reconciliation, about loving your enemy, about doing good to those who persecute you. Read those and let those verses soak into you, and then see what God would have you to do. Well, I'll be posting some links from the Sermon on the Mount as well. I hope you will look through those and remember that you can find peace with Jesus even while quarantined. I'll see you later.